So before we can secure a technology as pen testers, we must first understand that technology. And what I'm speaking of here is when it comes to cryptocurrency and the blockchain technology, right? Huge topic lately, and definitely not anything that's going away. I know this is a huge, daunting topic, but I'm going to sort of step you guys through, no matter what your current level of knowledge is when it comes to these technologies. I'm pretty much going to explain it from zero so you guys can follow along. And not only that, but we'll also be talking about how this fits in with, cybersecurity, with pen testing, right? How we can apply this knowledge as attackers. All right, what's up, guys? This is Ryan from Elevate Cyber. Let's just get right into it. So the first thing that we need to understand when it comes to this technology is we have to have a basic understanding of what is a blockchain, right? Now, a really good resource that I recommend if you are trying to get an initial understanding of this stuff, I mean, you can go on YouTube and probably find some pretty good videos, no doubt. But the site blockgeeks.com, they have a lot of articles and videos and stuff that can explain how this works. But I'm going to give you the Cliff Notes version here. So basically what a blockchain is, it's a public ledger, a public basically sequence of transactions that is verifiable, publicly available in the case of a lot of these currencies like Bitcoin, Ethereum, stuff like that. And a way to verify, to validate, that the transactions are legitimate. So a lot of these coins use what is called a proof of work algorithm. Now, there is proof of stake. I'm not going to really go into that too much in this video. That's something that's emerging, and you're starting to see that really become prevalent. But Bitcoin and a lot of the other cryptocurrencies use what is called a proof of work algorithm. So essentially, you have miners. You might have heard the term Bitcoin mining. These are nodes on the network, or basically, a node on the network is just a system on the network, just like your computer is a node on the internet, right? So you have these nodes, and they're mining the transactions, because that's how transactions are processed when it comes to cryptocurrency. You basically have a bunch of nodes or computers on the network that are constantly solving complex math equations. And the first one to solve the equation announces to the network they solved the equation, and the transaction gets processed, and they collect a fee. So that's the incentive for miners, right? They basically earn some money. Now, a little aside here, mining, now that Bitcoin and all this stuff is a lot more widely adopted, a lot bigger, it's not really profitable for the average person to mine anymore. You're basically going against people that have huge factories of mining rigs, like specifically designed to mine Bitcoin, and access to cheap power, or even free power in some cases. So it's just not a lucrative thing like it once was. But that's basically how the transactions are processed. Now, one question that a lot of people have when it comes to cryptocurrency is they ask the question, so what gives this value, right? It just and some people kind of joke, it just has value because we say it has value. Well, this is where kind of understanding the concept of money comes into play, right? If we think of fiat currency, which is, when I say fiat currency, I'm talking about traditional US dollars, euros, whatever the case may be, the paper money as we know it today. Well, that currency actually is also not backed by anything other than our trust in that it has value, right? You can go back and look that the U.S. dollar is no longer backed by gold as it used to be, and basically the value of for example, say the U.S. dollar, it basically has that value because we say that we agree that it has that value. Now, the purpose, without getting too far down this rabbit hole, the purpose of money in general is so that we have an easy, accessible way to transact value for a good or service, right? before any money existed, people would have to like scratch their head and decide what is a fair trade. Do I trade you this ox for for some food? Do I trade this many wooden planks for this much coal or something? You know what I mean? So that was obviously very confusing to figure out what is a fair trade. Not only that, like, imagine having to procure something like oxes or chickens or something like that, or cows, just to be able to, acquire resources, right? Acquire like food and shelter and all that stuff, or whatever you wanted to buy. So the solution to that was to create this paper currency, or, I guess really originally it was just coins, right? Gold coins and silver coins and stuff like that. And we agree that it has this much value. And so now we have something that's, easy to transport, easy to, for everyone to have, and, agreed upon value. And now we can trade back and forth, right? So that was pretty much the idea behind that. So now with that being said, applying this to the cryptocurrency area, the algorithm is what gives us that trust, right? This is coded in an algorithm, and that code is open source, publicly available. Anyone can go on GitHub and look at Bitcoin's code, look at the code of these other currencies as well. A lot of them, like Ethereum and pretty much most of the coins, that are based off of either of those blockchains. You can just go and you can, look at the code. It's open source. So you see that it's kind of backed by mathematics and complex mathematical equations. That when people mine for it, right, they're solving for these equations, and then that's how the value is transacted. That is like the basic explanation of how it works, without getting too far in the weeds and potentially losing some people here. So it basically is backed by mathematics, and so that's what is giving us that certainty that it is it is worth something, right? And it's also scarce, right? That was the thing. A lot of people can compare. Now, when I say it is scarce, I'm talking about Bitcoin, right? Not all the currencies have a maximum supply. Bitcoin does. It's 21 million. After 21 million coins are minted, there will never be any more Bitcoin created. That's it. So in that way, it's scarce, like gold. A lot of people compare Bitcoin to gold. Here's the thing about gold, though. A lot of people think that gold is a limited supply, but one thing they don't consider is there's gold is a resource, right? And that resource exists on like asteroids out there, on other planets, and at a certain point I could see us going to other planets and mining for gold, and then that's going to devalue the value of gold, right? Because you're adding a bunch more into circulation. With Bitcoin, it's coded in the algorithm. It's hard coded in there that there will only ever be 21 million Bitcoin, and that is that. So in that sense, it is even more scarce than gold. So that's another thing that's going to give it a nice store of value. And so with that being said, what sort of cryptocurrencies are out there? Because a lot of people talk about Bitcoin, but there's a lot more than just Bitcoin. And especially from a security perspective, a lot of time and sort of focus should be placed on some of these other currencies out here. Well, I'm on the site CoinMarketCap. This is basically a list of all of the different cryptocurrencies in order by, from largest to smallest market cap by default. But you can look at more than just this, but let's just start with these. These are the most relevant ones today. Obviously, Bitcoin's the biggest. And then there's also Ethereum. These two are what people refer to as the blue chip cryptocurrencies. Kind of like you have blue chip stocks. These are like your blue chip ones. These are the two biggest. So basically all the coins here, now I'm sure there's some exceptions out there, but almost every coin that you'll come across is either based off of Bitcoin's blockchain, like built on top of Bitcoin, or it's built on top of the Ethereum blockchain, okay? That is one thing you got to understand there. These are the two biggest by far. So with Ethereum, it's all about smart contracts, which I'm not going to get too in the weeds on that in this video, but basically you can write code to look for a certain condition to trigger, and once that condition is met, then automatically pay out, the funds, send the transaction to someone. So that opens up a ton of possibilities, but also a ton of potential vulnerabilities, right? There's been a lot of vulnerabilities found in these smart contracts. That's actually been one of the most exploited things. It has nothing to do with Ethereum being vulnerable, but rather the people developing the smart contract application and dApps and stuff like that, decentralized applications on top of this Ethereum network. If you do not code your smart contracts securely, then people could lose their money. It can get hacked and all kinds of stuff like that. So that is one area where it's really relevant to us as attackers. And that comes down to just understanding secure coding principles and stuff like that. Now, just kind of moving on down the line, this is what is called a stable coin. I won't get too much into that. Basically, it kind of matches and mimics the value of the US dollar so that you can transfer your cryptocurrency into dollars without actually having to off-ramp and be taxed on your crypto. And then, you have some other projects like, Polkadot, which this isn't really based off of Ethereum or Bitcoin. It's trying to be an interoperability chain. I don't want to go too far and lose you guys on all these different coins, but basically what I want to show you guys here is that you have a ton of different cryptos out here, and these are only the top 100. There is way more than just that. But most of these, with some exceptions, are either based off the Bitcoin blockchain or the Ethereum blockchain. With Ethereum, you got smart contracts. A lot of them have been found vulnerable. It just depends on how they're coded. So basically, for every cryptocurrency that uses a consensus algorithm, which, basically all the ones that have blockchains, right? They can be susceptible to a 51% attack, meaning as the attacker, if you control the majority of nodes on the network, greater than 50%, at least 51% of the nodes on the network, if you're in control of that, then you can actually trick the network into thinking that your blockchain of your fake transactions is the real legitimate transactions, and right, so it'll agree on your block as being the legitimate block, even though it's not, because the majority, on the consensus algorithm, for the blockchain to verify the blockchain, it's looking at what is the consensus, right? What do most people believe is true? This is how it's kind of hardened as well, because Bitcoin is huge now, right? There's so many miners on the network. The expense to do a 51% attack is not feasible for any attacker. They couldn't really gain control of 51% of the network anymore, because it would just take so many nodes in order to do that, right? Because remember, if we go back to the beginning of the video, the way it knows which transaction is legitimate is on the blockchain based off consensus, right? So the majority of people, majority of nodes on the network, I should say, agree on what is the legitimate transaction. And this is always going to be like the real one, unless as an attacker, you get like over 50% of the nodes on the network saying, oh no, this is the legitimate one. So for something like Bitcoin, where there's tons of nodes on the network, this is not feasible. However, we were looking at CoinMarketCap earlier, the other cryptocurrencies. Some of these smaller coins, you got to, that's one thing you got to kind of be concerned about. If it's a lot smaller coin, like with a lot less nodes on the network, it might be actually susceptible to this 51% attack. And we've seen that time and time again historically. And another set of vulnerabilities here just relates to keys and wallets. Basically, I didn't go over this, but you can store your cryptocurrency in what's called a wallet. And basically, at that point, you're your own bank. You're holding custody over your own currency. And the way you secure that is through a key. So with that key, you want to make sure that it's something that has a strong password and stuff like that, and that you're storing your private keys in a secure manner. Pretty standard there. Another thing is synchronization. Now, with Bitcoin, with the blockchain network of peer-to-peer nodes, basically, it's extremely important that these nodes are able to synchronize amongst themselves. Because if not, then you might be able to tamper with some of that data. And then as well, redundancy testing is another thing that pen testers in the blockchain space definitely look for. And that just relates to testing like all the issues with the redundancy when you're sharing data across the nodes. So for example, like you want to make sure that it handles it well, even if multiple nodes fail at the same time. And another thing is the time jacking attack. Now, this attack basically has to do with the system clock time. If it's not in sync with the rest of its peers, then if you're familiar with even traditional IT or like Windows stuff, you know that if the clock is way off, sometimes you can do some interesting things. So like basically, if you have a malicious node that has an inaccurate timestamp, then they could potentially alter the network time counter. And then that could lead to other issues like, for example, double spending and just wasting mining resources, essentially. And of course, with these blockchains, there comes all the API technology stuff. So when it comes to that, of course, all the standard API vulnerabilities apply. So basically, you want to test these APIs the same way you would do for, any other API, basically. And then the last thing I want to close with is, of course, there's denial of service, distributed denial of service attacks. If you can clog up the network on some of these coins, then you can actually deny service. So that's pretty much, I know this was a long video, that's pretty much all I wanted to cover for this one. We're going to be going more in depth and learning more about specific cryptocurrencies and maybe even diving into a little bit of the technicals and stuff like that for these. So yeah, if you guys are interested in this content, definitely hit the subscribe button, comment down below what you guys think. And maybe if I missed anything, any of the vulnerabilities and important stuff. I know I just glossed over the sort of smart contract vulnerabilities. We didn't go into detail on what some of those are, maybe for a future video. But yeah, definitely hit the like button, and I will see you guys in the next video.